Hello, and welcome to our lunar cycle transit report. I'm Richard Corbett,
And I'm Brandy Jordan.
and
Hi.
we're here to take a deep dive into the new moon tomorrow on December 12th at 4:32 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We
Mhm.
thought we'd take a look at the body graph and the astrological chart, see what aspects we've got and which gates are activated.
Absolutely.
So let's take a deep dive and see what this new moon may have in store for us.
In Sagittarius.
I love Sagittarius. That is my rising sign. So I have a particular affinity for Sagittarius.
And you have a cool story that I like. We're both six lines, so we have a connection to Chiron, and you've got a story about
We
that.
do as six line beings for sure. Well, also that the constellation Sagittarius was actually given to Chiron when he gave up his immortality to take the place of Prometheus
Mhm.
in Hades. And yeah, it was a selfless act of Chiron to give up his life and immortality. Kind of a sad story, but it really speaks to selflessness
Mhm.
and the kindness really of Chiron. He was in Greek mythology the greatest healer, teacher, educator, facilitator, and philosopher in
Yeah.
all of Greek mythology. And he has a special role in Sagittarius as the ultimate centaur.
Yeah.
So we'll be talking more about Chiron as we go into this new moon. But yeah, let's see here. So we've got the sun and moon conjunct for the new moon, 4:32 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on December 12th. And we have the sun in gate 26, line 4, which also means the moon will be in gate 26, line 4, over there in Sagittarius.
And 26 line 4, the gate of censorship. This ego gate that is meant to manipulate the tribe for better or for worse.
Mm.
Um, in the new moon. What would you say about that?
Well, when I think of gate 26, biologically, that gate relates to our thymus gland.
Yeah.
So it makes our T cells, and our T cells are the defenders of our immune system. They will track down and kill all the bad things in our body, cancer cells, you name it. So they're quite powerful, they're vicious, and they are killers, and we need them.
Yes,
But what it does bring to light is just how powerful this gate is.
it
I
does.
mean, this is called the gate of the egoist.
Taming the power of the great.
Taming the power of the great. Yeah. And so as it's coming out of the ego center, looking over at gate 44 in the channel of surrender, a
Mhm.
design of a transmitter. And this channel is here to support the tribe.
Absolutely. And in the fourth line, it is about the manipulation of memory, censorship. It's about, in its or in its lowest expression, it's like gaslighting,
Mm.
a little bit like making you believe that what you experienced wasn't true. And it's in its highest expression. It is about bringing a new perspective to what it is that you remember. In my experience, it's about being able to go back to those memories that you have. And instead of having the chemistry that activates those killer T cells, which inflame and elevate your immune system, when you go back and have a different perspective, excuse me, on those memories, changes the chemistry of your body.
Well, it's got some punch, that's for sure.
Mhm.
Now, we can also see from the astrological chart that Mars is also still in Sagittarius. So it is 7 degrees away from the new moon, but we would still consider that to be conjunct.
Mhm.
So when we think about Mars, the Greek god of war, and the power, the vibrational power that it brings, it's intense as well.
Yeah,
So with this new moon is definitely packing some punch with Mars right next door for sure.
absolutely. In gate 5, line 3, which is about patience. It is about, this was a nice line 3 when we just reviewed it. It is compulsiveness that can be limited in its negative effect through flights of imagination. So it's about the power of Mars being able to use its discipline to move into imagination instead of action
Hmm.
until timing is right.
Till the timing is right. So it is in gate 5, also called the gate of waiting, coming
Mhm.
out of the sacral center. Where thinking about Mars and the gate of waiting,
Mhm.
kind of a tough fit, right? I mean, we can see the impetuous, uh, um, immature side of Mars, which often comes out, is not really accustomed to waiting.
Hmm.
But I think here, what I'm contemplating is just how we can almost, in a sense, channel that power of Mars for this idea of waiting and finding patience, because patience is a tough virtue, but
Absolutely.
but certainly important. And I think it's through impatience that we actually learn patience. And I think Mars is giving us a little dose of that lesson here in Gate
Yeah.
5.
And like I said, in the line three, it just seems pretty supportive to be able to use that um, Mars energy sitting in this gate of patience, which those two things don't really go together, but the ability to then have an outlet for Mars, the creativity, the being able to imagine what could be next when it's
Mm-hmm.
time to move.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So we got off on a little sidetrack with Mars conjunction there, but let's take a look. We talked about the sun in gate 26, line 4. So that would put the Earth activation and its polarity in gate 45, line
Mhm.
4. Tell us about that line.
All right. Gate 45 is gathering together. It is the natural and generally beneficial attraction of like forces. And in the fourth line, it's the ability to focus the opportunity of gathering together for the service of higher principles, the expression of higher principles on the material plane. So what that says to me is that in order to anchor this manipulation of memory, from gaslighting into a favorable reconstruction of our neurology, what's important to keep in mind is gathering together in service of higher principles.
Yeah, very nice. Well, when I think of Sagittarius, that makes me think of Sagittarius as well, even though the
Mhm.
Earth is going to be in Gemini with the sun in Sagittarius. Sagittarius has this higher ideals, right? It's mutable fire, ruled by Jupiter. It has this optimistic nature to it, and I
Mhm.
think that's part of what my takeaway thinking about this new moon. Boy, it's been a difficult year. If you've been following our lunar cycle transit reports, clear back to the eclipses we had this year,
Mhm.
we had Chiron was in play. There were some really challenging aspects to Chiron during the
Yeah,
eclipse season, bringing up past wounds from either early childhood. Relationships were involved. One of the eclipse in Libra.
absolutely.
So yeah.
35, 36 being activated in the transit almost consistently off and on all
Hmm.
year. So
Hmm.
the darkening of the light and the
Hmm.
ability to find our own nurturing, our own equanimity, our own ability to stand on our own 2 feet in relationship and outside
Hmm.
has been challenged.
Yeah,
We've
yeah.
been invited into opportunities to do that.
Yeah, and we moved from those well, but then we had the eclipse in Scorpio,
Yeah.
and we had a 9 out of 11 activations. I
Mm.
remember for that eclipse, we're all in individual
Mhm.
gates, bringing the melancholy and going deep within the fixed water sign of Scorpio. It was a really intense time, and I really feel like the year itself, right? Even looking
Yeah.
at the geopolitical news, there's so much trauma, um, just a lot of challenging things going on the planet right now.
Absolutely. And it's just a push. It feels like a benevolent push from, the program or the source or whatever created us to be able to find our individual expression. It's just invitation after invitation to see how we can integrate ourselves as ourselves in the world. And I
Mm.
think that unrest is an example of where we're not doing that. It's coming to light and it's bringing it straight in our faces.
Yeah. So I think, well, certainly part of this new moon to me is thinking about what are my intentions for hope
Hmm.
and optimism for
Absolutely.
individual self-expression during these difficult times.
And the way to do that in the dark, right, when we can't see is to imagine. And
Mhm.
so this is what it's inviting is the imagination of who, what, where, when, how, why do you want to be?
Mhm.
And standing up into that through manipulation of memory, if we bring it all the way back to the new moon, through the ability to go back to what you think you know is true
Mhm.
and what you may be holding on to that is violent and aggressive and wants to destroy things
Mhm.
because as above so below and what
Mhm.
is going on in our bodies is also going on around us. So when I see violence outside, I look for where am I creating war inside, and so
Mhm.
this is a great opportunity for that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, let's see from there. Maybe we stay in the channel of surrender. We can look at the other side to gate
Mm.
44. This is where we have Venus right now over in Scorpio. Now, Venus in Scorpio, wow, this is some hot passion here.
Yes, it is.
If we think of Venus as what we want, really, it's our desires, our hope for beauty and
Mhm.
balance and harmony. But she is in a very intense water sign right now.
Yeah.
So this is some fiery passion in gate 44, the gate of alertness, the alertness to patterns, the alertness to the correct willpower there,
Mhm.
where they can join forces in the channel of the transmitter to support the tribe.
And playing on that story that we just talked about, 44 in the third line is interference. So it's the ability to either play the tape forward and see where if we tie it to 26, where these memories that are um, activating our T cells in
Mhm.
our body,
Mhm.
which then turn into maladaptive or dis-ease in our body, what's the interference? And it's
Mhm.
the instinctual knowing to know maybe who, what, where, when, but mostly the memories, I think, the
Mhm.
ability to instinctually go back and figure out what is causing interference in your relating, in your
Mhm.
passion and your morals and values and what you want and all of that.
Absolutely, and it's helping us be healthier that way at the
Mm-hmm.
root level of the splenic awareness center, that it is about this idea of how we can support each other through that memory and being healthier
Yeah.
and wealthier. It is a
Mm-hmm.
material channel. It's how we
Absolutely.
can support our people, our loved ones,
Mm-hmm.
both materially and in a health related way.
Mm-hmm. And 44 again is the fear of the past, right? So it's the fear of repeating the same mistake and being blind to that intuitive knowing of what 26, what memories to support or not support,
Mhm.
what ego power to support or not support.
Mhm.
Um, and so when in this, I feel like in Sagittarius or in Scorpio, if we're not true to the depths and the darkness and the true who are you really, and even in all of the shadows, that's the intuition I think it's asking us to go in
Yeah.
and look for.
Yeah, very nice. And to me, it ties together the eclipse we had in Scorpio, because that
Hmm.
was a really theme of that time. And now we're being led into this new moon in Sagittarius. So I can really see that storyline continuing.
Hmm.
But let's look at some of the other planets and just sort of keep tying these layers together. If we go down to Pluto, which has been in Capricorn now for 15 years, it
Hmm.
is going to move into Aquarius on January 20th, although it will come back into Capricorn again in 2024, and it will finally move into Aquarius for good in November of 2024. But we're down here. It is moving forward. It was in retrograde, but has finally started moving forward again and being in line 3. But gate 60 in the channel of mutation, a
Hmm.
design that initiates and fluctuates, really speaking toward the acceptance of limitations.
Yeah.
If we look at gate 60 and how that process can
Hmm.
lead to mutation, transformation,
Hmm.
right? So it's powerful. Now, as we're talking about Pluto, I think we also want to bring in some of the aspects. And the Pluto for this new moon is in a half square, or called semi-square, with the Mars we were talking about. So this is a really potent energy.
Hmm.
When we think about a square, we're talking about an energy that is very dynamic. It can be conflictual in a sense, but it's also offering the opportunity for growth.
Right.
And so the power of Mars lining up in this semi square with the power of Pluto is bringing that extra punch to this new moon. But we have to think about this idea that it's in gate 5, Mars
Hmm.
is, right? So somehow using that difficult element of patience
Hmm.
can lead to the transformation of an acceptance of limitations that Pluto was offering.
That's beautiful. So to be able to be patient enough to see what the limitation is offering,
Mhm.
instead of feeling twisted and constricted in the limitation, sitting there imagining what could become,
Mhm.
um, and then allowing it to show itself
Yeah.
and mutate. And oh, there it is.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
that's something that we can apply that to the new moon with our
Hmm.
intentions.
Hmm.
Where are we going? Where can we have the hope and optimism that this can lead us towards? I just can't appreciate the Sagittarian nature to this lunar event,
Yeah.
and the last one of the calendar year.
And the Centaur Sagittarius, it just brings so much to my contemplation, just watching him stand there with his different body, different torso, different legs, ready to do whatever it is he's supposed to do in
Mhm.
any kind of way. just at the ready. So I imagine he is the imagination. I just feel like it is the ideal expression of what we could imagine, of where we can go and what we can be. But again, with the other aspects, we're not moving anywhere right now. We're
Right.
just imagining.
But I love from your words, what I was also hearing was the keynote for gate 11,
Mhm.
which is where the sun will be moving in later this week. And gate
Mhm.
11 being the gate of ideas in the collective sensing circuitry also speaks to this. Gate
Yeah.
11 to me is such an archetypal gate of Sagittarius. These
Mhm.
based on our past experiences, what beliefs and higher ideals, white
Mhm.
magical ideas can
Yeah.
we have about the future?
Yeah. And how to express them in a way that is stimulating, and that has us want to come along for the collective, for
Hmm.
sure.
And if we go down here to Neptune, which is still in gate 36,
Yeah.
been
Yeah. Yeah.
here a long time. Um,
Oh, so we could talk about transition. So this is the point at which decline has exhausted its power. And this could be hope.
mhm,
This is when 36, right, turns into hope. This
mhm.
is when it turns around and goes towards the light.
The idea of the line transition,
Yeah.
the end of the darkening of the light.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's the ability to establish a new order out of the ashes of the old. And I think being a Neptune, it makes that knowing of how to do that really fuzzy. So we see a lot in our circles, people not knowing exactly what to do or how to move forward, but
Mhm.
having a glimmer of hope right now that maybe there is something that they can do.
Yeah, well, we need that right now. And it also, it isn't a square to the new moon. Um, So, that veil quality always in
Mhm.
full play with Neptune. But again, with this dynamic energy of a square to the new moon, to me, it provides that extra push to the imagination.
Yeah.
Neptune is the mystical and the spiritual. It's in Pisces, the sign that it rules. It's in a challenging gate, being 36, but it's through these crises that we can hopefully
Hmm.
find the hope
Hmm.
and the transition.
Yeah. In the crises, bringing it back to the new moon with 26 in the fourth line, in this crisis, it does force us to really relook at what beliefs we have, what
Mhm.
memory, why we believe the thing that we do, who
Mhm.
told us that thing that made
Mhm.
us believe this thing that is now possibly creating war in the world around us.
Right.
And how do we um, serve and surrender to the truth of what's needed for our tribe?
Beautiful. Yeah, absolutely. So then we also have Uranus in gate 23, still moving retrograde. It's going to continue retrograde back to line one, and then
Mhm.
it'll finally turn forward in January.
But in this new moon time, this is proselytization, the sage who, in the extreme, can defend evil as part of the greater good. Now, evil is quite a subjective word, but this is the powerful expression of an insight which will undermine established values. So, the powerful expression of an insight that can undermine exactly what values are in place that may be causing war. So, this is
Mhm.
that beautiful opportunity that we get to give ourselves to be creative, to maybe not stay in the same rhythms and routines, but carve out some time to let our expression show us what could maybe move us forward.
Yeah, a really potent time to experience and find our voice of truth and
Mm-hmm.
empowerment.
Mm-hmm.
And Uranus as a planet, we call it the planet of unusualness.
Mm-hmm.
It is the planet of suddenness. It's shocking change, right? It's like lightning. It comes out of nowhere and something happens. And so to me, it really resonates with individual circuitry as well.
Yeah.
This idea of the pulse, the on, the off, the
Mm-hmm.
sudden empowerment and expression of mutative creative power. So having Uranus here is very potent. But I think in terms of this new moon, again, part of the intention is what is my voice
Yeah.
amidst all of this?
What is my voice? And I made a mistake. It's 23 in the second line is what is going on, which is self-defense, not proselytization. So my apologies.
Well, it'll move. It's going to move into line one actually later this week, and
Okay.
that's where it stations. It'll be in
Okay.
line one for about a month while it's stationed before it moves
Oh,
forward again.
beautiful. So
So that's
that's
certainly still
clear.
part of the vibration because it's almost back into line.
Yeah, so in line two, it's self-defense, the need to abandon tolerance when survival is threatened. So the principle of preservation at its most acute. the abandonment of tolerance where individual expression is threatened. Um, and this is I think this is a really important ingredient in changing the collective ideals. Because when we can stand up and have the natural ability in the line two to say, no, this is really my individual truth. This can sound like a negative thing, this self-defense, abandoning tolerance. That can sound terrible, but really what needs to happen is the abandonment of the tolerance of what's happening.
Yeah, well, not only that too, but individual, there's this theme, we hear this a lot in individual gates. There is resistance to individuality. I mean, the tribe and the collective like to keep things the same.
Same.
And individual circuitry says no,
Yeah.
that we do have to be discerning and discriminating, and sometimes abandon tolerance for expression,
Yeah.
personal self-expression.
And that takes bravery and courage. And I mean, so does 26-4 and all that comes with that. It takes bravery. So I think that we are being not only encouraged and asked, but supported by the cosmos to have that bravery.
Absolutely. And let's see, we've got Saturn, which is still in gate 55 down here, and the gate of abundance, the spirit, emotional spirit. Saturn is also moving forward now. It was in retrograde for quite a while. It's stationed on line 1 of gate 55, but has now moved into line 2.
And this is the line of distrust. And so it's the abundance hampered by slander or gossip, the gift of being able to penetrate to the center that may demonstrate effectively through its relating talents that its trustfulness is genuine. The emotional stability and the strength of spirit is dependent on being trusted. So in 55 line 1, we were establishing what our expression of our emotional spirit was. And now it's about staying the course. About allowing it to continue despite the darkening of the light or whatever is happening around.
Right.
And this will engender trust in the collective, that this individual expression is not just some fly-by-night something that we can't trust, but something that will be here for a long time, and maybe we should look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Saturn, that gate 55 is in Pisces. And I think Saturn, we can always look to Saturn to find our discipline, our structure. And having it in the gate of abundance, it's like Saturn is offering some support here, right? I mean, Saturn's often thought of the planet of resistance, but to me, with Saturn in Pisces in gate 55, the discipline to provide structure, to find this emotional spirit, to find the equilibrium. It is in the channel of emoting, it is individual, so it's tied to the pulse. It can have that spiking wave of the solar plexus through the cyclical nature of the solar plexus. So we all experience that, whether we're defined or not. And with Saturn here, it's again offering this opportunity to have like a handrail into the mystical world of Pisces. And it's, to me, it's really another supportive element to these challenging times. So I feel like Uranus and Saturn in these individual gates are where we can really turn to in terms of like our presence and awareness to channel the energy of these planets into our creative being and how we can express ourselves.
So what is your individual truth and what feels like abundance in expression to you? That is what you get to get creative in this new moon about.
In using creativity, whatever modality someone may appreciate that makes you feel empowered. Singing, writing, drawing, walking in nature, playing with your children, anything that's giving you that sensation right now, to me, that's where the fertile soil is.
Beautiful. And it all leads to...
Well, the next one we can look at Jupiter. Now, Jupiter being maybe a little extra important because it is this planet that rules the sign of Sagittarius. Jupiter is in gate 27, line 5, and it's also still moving in retrograde in Taurus. So it's going to be retrograde till the end of the month, but it is in the gate of caring.
Which is about reviewing, because it's in retrograde, reviewing, this is the executor, the ability to distribute effectively the resources of others. So either you have the talent to distribute it or you have the good sense to find someone that can. But being that it's in retrograde, it's about how do I take care of, or how have I been taking care of the resources of others.
Yeah. Again, I think a really, really important element of the new moon, because it's in Sagittarius, that this Jupiter is, as you're saying, it's reviewing, caring. So gate 27 not only speaks to self-care,
Yeah.
extremely important, because we have to take care of ourselves if we're going to have the energy to take care of our loved ones.
Mask on first.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think, again, another important element for reflection and review right now as we move forward from this new moon is how we are offering our energy for caring. Yeah, it's a
Absolutely.
big deal. Well, let's see. We talked about the Mars in gate 5. We talked about
did.
Venus in 44. The only planet we
Mercury.
haven't talked about would be Mercury down here in gate 58, line 5.
Oh,
The gate of the joyous,
I feel like we got some
aliveness.
reprieve, maybe. So 58 in the fifth line. Well, it's defense. The natural and practical instinct to protect oneself, regardless of temptation. The fuel for self-defense, regardless of stimulation. So this is the gate of the joyous. This is the pressure to correct, to make things more joyous, more blissful, more enjoyable. These experiences that we have as humans. And in the fifth line, it is to protect your joy against temptation. So what would you say about this? Tell me more.
Well, not only am I thinking about what you're sharing, this gate 58, as you said, the pressure to improve joy, right? It's in the collective channel of judgment, a design of insatiability. So this is the adrenal pressure and energy to improve, right? It's relentless in gate 58. It's insatiability to want to up-level patterns that lead to greater health, wealth, and sustainability. Now, the interesting thing that happens with this new moon, which is again at 4:32 p.m. on the 12th, later that evening, which is tomorrow for us, Mercury will actually start its retrograde cycle. And it's going to move all the way back into Sagittarius to gate 26, line 6. So almost where the new moon is, right? So I think even though we're setting intentions, Sagittarian intentions about reviewing where we've been, what we've learned this year, on this closing lunar cycle of the calendar year anyway. But as it goes back to 26, it's definitely tied to this theme. And so this reviewing period, which will take place for the rest of the month, this retrograde cycle, is really reviewing how we are experiencing not only all the gates that it'll retrograde back through. So we're talking about all the rest of 58, gate 10, 11, back to 26 and forward again. It's really the cornerstone here being where it is at 58, line 5. How are we offering that energy? It makes me want to think of Jupiter because that's connected to it. But this self-care, this nurturing aspect, and bringing this drive for improvement are all part of this new moon story.
Yeah. And I would ask, is it more about, not necessarily about intentions, but about, well, like you said, review and creative imagination of what could be? You know, there's a difference between contemplation and goal setting, right? So we're not goal setting right now. We're just imagining the fruition and experience of our individual expression being assimilated in the world with the right people, caring for them joyously.
Yeah, but that's exactly right. And I think all of that leads us back to the one defined channel for the new moon, this tribal channel of support.
Yeah.
And all of these elements of the Jupiter and the Mercury for sure are how are we doing that? How are we applying our energy towards that?
Yeah. And this gate of surrender is the surrender to yourself, to the you know, it's the ego power and the instinctual knowing to surrender to the experience of being human, and then the material success that comes after that. So I think in Venus and in the sun and the moon, I think that's just a really supportive combination, even though all the rest kind of seem like a crazy grab bag of things.
Well, and if we finish up here by looking at the nodes of the moon, the only thing we haven't talked about yet, I think this really shows the underlying current to the whole story. We have the south node in the gate of continuity, in the tribal channel of transformation, a design of being driven. So if
Mhm.
the south node represents our past, where
Yeah.
we've come from, what have we taken from our past that has value that we can continue and carry into the future? So
Mhm.
again, I think that really ties into the theme of this new moon as we reflect on this past year, the
Absolutely.
ups and downs and the challenges, trying to
Mhm.
struggle through that, and
Mhm.
what that means for us and our own individual creative power, how we can express ourselves going forward. And so that south node, as we move to the north node, is in the gate of growth,
Right.
right? And uh, go ahead.
Beautiful support for 26 in the moon. I mean,
Hmm.
because aren't the nodes the portals,
That's
right,
right.
of the moon? And
Hmm.
so to go back and remember uh, w- instinctually how did you um, not just stay stagnant with the tribe, but achieve? What were the things instinctually that allowed you to move forward in the tribe? So 26, go back in your memory, go
Hmm.
back to those, that
Right.
what you hold in your body and what was successful and what wasn't.
And what wasn't can be left behind,
Right.
right? It's a time of pruning in that
Yes. And
sense,
maturity to
right?
42.
Where can we prune our energy to be more effective and supportive?
Yeah.
Into gate 42, the gate of growth. Um, and evolution, maturation. It's in
Yeah.
the channel of maturation, a
Right.
formatting gate for the collective circuitry.
So the instinctual knowing of what and how to mature and use your energy in the process of maturation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, there's some thoughts to ponder.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Welcome to the new moon.
Welcome to the new moon. Well, thank you all for joining us. Hope we provided some stimulating thoughts for your own contemplation, and we hope you have a wonderful new moon tomorrow on December 12th at
Yeah,
4:32 p.m.
absolutely. And we'd love to hear your creative stimulations. What does your imagination say if there were no limits?
Right.
What does it say about who you could be in the world and how you can exist uh, in a different way without the violence that you've shared and stored in your body?
Yeah, with this Sagittarius theme, it's definitely a time for trying to get ourselves in that creative space of limitless
That's
possibilities.
right.
Dreaming is not just for kids.
Yeah. Please dream.
And this truly is a beautiful new moon for
Yeah.
those types of dreams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Brandy.
All
And
right.
thank you all.
See you guys in 2 weeks.
Bye for now.